Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Elirjeta Beka and I'll be your host for today's discussions. Today we are diving into an important conversation about our cities because public spaces reflect power. If they are not designed with women, youth, LGBTQI plus people, marginalized communities in mind, the city becomes exclusionary by default. In this episode, we'll explore how gender-responsive tools, feminist urbanism, and community-led approaches can reshape urban spaces and make them safer, more accessible, and more inclusive. Today with us we have Alma, which is a political scientist specializing in gender-responsive environmental governance and the green transition, currently supporting the Cities for People campaign at the CE Bankwatch network. We also have Anna, who is a research coordinator at Reactor with extensive experience in gender equality, safety, labor inclusion, and evidence-based advocacy in North Macedonia. So Anna, let me start with you. Why it is important to bring gender lens in urban planning in the Western Balkans, and what problems do you see when this is missing?
Thank you, Elirjeta. I just wanted to say that this is missing in most of the cities in our country. It's not an exclusion, it's the rule that this is missing. And why is that so? Is because we now know that traditionally cities were planned having a certain user in mind, which was the man who woke up in the morning, went to work, drove his car to work, went there and came back at home. But now we also know that women have very different daily routines compared to men. They are more likely to be responsible for their children's kindergarten and school drop-off and pick-up. They are more likely to be those responsible for elder care, bringing kids or themselves to health appointments, and they're more likely to work in precarious jobs which are done in shifts. So their movement across the day, it's not as linear as men's. And what happens when the city does not respond to their needs is we have women of all ages, even the youngest, even those who go to school, strategizing their movement. And at this point, even when they are like 15, 16 years old, this strategizing is part of their cognitive mental work throughout the day. They're not aware that they are doing it and why they are doing it. It's so normalized while growing up that it's part of how they live life and experience the city. We saw that girls, although they had this basic feeling of being safe from crime, let's say, when asked which routes are they taking and which routes are they avoiding, they had the awareness of what is safe and what is unsafe for them, especially after dark, when streets are not well lit. We have in Skopje, after the pandemic, we have many central streets that are not well lit, that don't have sufficient lighting. And this means that they are unsafe from violence in the streets, but also they are unsafe from traffic because the crossroads aren't well lit and the drivers can't see who is crossing the road. So what I wanted to say is that women at this point in I would say most of the cities in our country, but let's focus on Skopje for starters, use only parts of the city, only at certain time of day and only for a certain need. If they need to go to work or go to school, leisure time is very limited and very dependent on the conditions surrounding it. We had girls, I just want to add that in our study, talking about how they are dressed for the night. They are bearing the mental labor on deciding what to wear that night, how provocative will that be, but also whether they can run in the heels that they are wearing. So that's part of the labor that they are holding that no one else who should be taking care of that does.
Thank you, Anna, for explaining what is happening with gender lens, in the urban planning in the Western Balkans, more specifically in Skopje. And now I would like to go to Alma. You have looked at urban mobility plan in Tbilisi and Sarajevo. What did these cases reveal about the gap between gender equality commitments and actual implementations?
Yes, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me and to share some findings from the research Bankwatch supported. I must first make a note that both the research were done in cooperation with our local partners in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that was Sarajevo Open Center, and in Georgia, in Tbilisi, it was Green Alternative, because we tend to find local civil society organizations or initiatives and to cooperate with them. And I think it's always important to mention the great work of people that are living in those communities. So when we look to both of these cities, I would first say some general problems that in both cities, citizens are very concerned about air pollution, for example. And I would say, unfortunately, this is not exclusive problem of Sarajevo and Tbilisi. We all are now watching the maps. And
strong competition.
Competition. Who is worst?
Who's winning?
Who is winning? Yeah, but I know it's good to make jokes, but still. And air pollution is one of the main driver also behind this involvement of public into, let's say, even urban designing or their interest into how do we shape our cities. Then it's also interesting that these projects or these plans tend to be car-centric, although we recognize the air pollution is a problem. And when bringing the gender lenses on this problem, let's say, we know that women tend to own less car. And today I learned on the panel that was previously, and I never thought about that perspective, and I feel a bit ashamed that when women get divorced, they will not inherit or get the car. And I must admit that I even didn't think about these consequences that can have on women. Also in both cities, rush hours are normalized. In Sarajevo, unfortunately, I think now rush hour is almost all the day, which additionally influences the air pollution. Also, it's important to look at accessibility. So women with children in strollers and people with reduced mobility, for them our public transport tends to be not so accessible. They cannot get so easily into the buses, minibuses, trams, etc. Although some improvements are trying to be made, at least through some of the investments that are coming to both cities. When it comes to gender-based violence, I must say that in both surveys, we found out some, I would say, not such nice numbers. In 2012, in Tbilisi, 35% of women said they had experienced offensive sexual behavior. They didn't feel safe, and LGBTI people also encountered discrimination on public transport and didn't feel safe. Like 53% of them in Tbilisi said that public transport is a piece of discrimination. This is really something that we need to look at. In Sarajevo, like alarming number of 75.6% of women feel unsafe in public transport or walking to and from stations and stops. And I think this also goes well with what you previously said also. Is there a light? How can I get to these train stations? Also, when I'm walking in some unfamiliar setting, I'm also looking at how to get to maybe that station. Who is there? Is it too dark? So it tends to influence us on really personal and emotional level. Sometimes also we need to think about. And I would say that in our research we also look into strategic documentation. So the canton of Sarajevo joined the Green Cities program, which is the investment program of EBRD, in 2018 and Tbilisi in 2017. So they were like pioneer cities. So at that time maybe the methodology was not set well in place. There were afterwards some improvements in this regard, I must say, but still there is a lot of space to improve them. In Sarajevo, this document is gender blind. Unfortunately, the opportunity was missed. Also, the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan in Sarajevo, which was in the same time developed, didn't coordinate well, and they also didn't include gender perspective. I would say the participatory part was not organized well, and when you look to the methodology of sustainable urban mobility plans, special part is dedicated to the participation and inclusion of citizens. They have also, like in this cycle, they have recommendations and guidelines how to conduct them, and I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't saw this in Sarajevo, because I had opportunity also to work on some guidelines on how to make these plans more inclusive, let's say. Also, this formalistic approach is recognized in both plans. So, like, it's more general, and yeah, we will somehow count women and marginalized groups or something. So this needs to be definitely changed, this formalistic approach. And also in 2023 Tbilisi transport plan, it's worth like 500 million. So we need to also, where these investments will go, you know, after they were on some accounts, then we lose opportunity even to drive investments, and that's why I think this participation and development of strategic documentation should be one of the maybe main action points also we look at. Okay, research and everything, but this is the opportunity when we can push for certain things. We are talking these past 2 days, and in Tbilisi, none of proposed measures for improving urban mobility were geared toward benefiting gender equality. So one more missed opportunity, and what we usually are overlooking is how important is information about routes and schedules to be available. Usually in Sarajevo, for me, although I live in such a part of town where I have available 3 different means of public transport, some small transport hub, for me it's very hard to combine them, because I don't know the exact timetables. Now they tend to improve it. This was also done in cooperation with government and banks. They are testing the system, but I must admit, 30 years after the war, and we have it now, because this is basic thing. And we cannot only rely on applications. This is something also that comes from the boat research. Let's think on some basic thing, negative thing that can happen. It's like there's no electricity, your mobile phone is out of power, and then we need to have on visible places the timetables. Also, maybe some older people cannot use the applications so well. So these are such, I would say, basic things. Like, it's not something that you need special expertise on quantum physics. So that's why I always look at to this aspect also policy design, because that's the moment when we need to take into account all of this, what we recognize.
And to follow up to this, what do you think are the risks of gender washing when it comes to plans that look good in paper but they fail in the ground?
Unfortunately, this gender washing, I would say it's mostly recognizable. We can recognize it mostly in like they tend to satisfy it with such small improvements. Like, hey, we have, I don't know, 10 new female drivers in public company that is operating, you know, public services. And although this is also an important aspect, we cannot only say, okay, we have this one result, one indicator, it's enough. When we see that the problem influences, as you said, leisure, influences job opportunities, influences education opportunities. So it cannot be either workers or either citizens. This needs to be tackled differently, and I would say we need a different approach to it. So let's not use these small numbers as good indicators or just one set of indicators, because problem is quite complex.
Now, let's go on back to you. Can you share the insights from the Her City-based initiative, even though still is in early stages of implementation? Like, what is the main aim of this initiative, and how youth-led gender-responsive methods help uncover real needs that stakeholders often ignore?
Okay, thank you. I will go one step back just to share finding from our study from last year, where we realized that almost all women, either they themselves personally or a woman they knew, have at some point felt unsafe due to another person's behavior while using the public spaces, which is something that we as girls, as women growing up, kind of know. We all have these experiences of being catcalled or being touched in a bar while someone is passing around us. This is a shared experience for most of the women in my surrounding. And then, knowing this, we developed a platform called Reagiraj Bidi Bezbedna, React Be Safe, in which women could note what they had experienced, when and where, and what actually happened. And they can do this anonymously. The idea behind this was first to encourage women to speak about these things, to have somewhere that they can turn to when they experience something that they're not comfortable with, but still lack the resources to ask for help or to even know what they can do about it. But also we want to support better planning of police and security activities. If there is a map of the city and there are points where many women reported something happening to them that endangered their safety, then we can collaborate with the government to take note of this part, see what's happening, and see what needs to be done. And one more thing I wanted to share from our study, which is very interesting to me. I think it's my favorite piece of data. We asked girls what measures are they taking to protect themselves when they go out at night, and the most common answer was holding a key between my fingers, or lighting a cigarette and walking with a cigarette, although I don't smoke it, walking with a cigarette so I can burn someone if they attack me. And of course we know about this. When I said this, you said, of course, right? And then we talked to women aged over 50, and they don't feel endangered in the same way young girls do. But they do have memories of the times when they felt endangered. And without any prompts, they asked, I don't have to do the things that I did in the 80s. For example, in the 80s, when I was 20-something year old, I walked home with the key between my fingers and lit up cigarettes so I can burn something. It was the same thing, and the same strategies are transferred through generations of women. So what we know about on how to protect ourselves is something that has been going on for decades, before I was even born. And we wanted to, for our initiative, to come back to your question, we wanted to walk the city with women, with girls. This year we're doing it with young girls, with high school girls, and see how they experience the city when they are moving throughout. And I can share the data from this year, but I came from the last year. We did walks in Skopje and Tetovo, and we did, in both cities, we did one daily walk and one night walk after dark in the same route. And the things that we realized during the walk and that the girls realized during the walk were very simple. Sidewalks in poor condition, open potholes, cars being parked on the pavement, and it was very difficult to move even as a young able-bodied woman. And we all talked about how it would feel to push a stroller on this sidewalk. How would it feel if someone was in a wheelchair, if someone was accompanying someone older, or if someone older was walking by themselves in these spaces. Also, there is this constant alertness about traffic. There is this constant load of thinking of cars, of thinking whether e-scooters will run over me, of thinking whether I can cross this crosswalk safely. And the general experience was that even without anything happening, we had to stay alert at all times while using the public spaces in the city. In the evening walk, it was the same thing with extra spice, lightning. The lack of lightning, practically. We are seeing now in Skopje public spaces that are not lit still from the pandemic on. Or we have public spaces that have lights but are behind a tree or are not turned toward the path that they should be illuminated. So many of the streets that young people are using for whatever purposes, it doesn't matter if it's leisure, you said that in the panel so well, even if it's for leisure, but they can use them for basic needs as well, and leisure is one of the needs. What they do, they adapt their paths, they are walking the long road to home in order to feel safe when they go out. And I said this on the panel, I want to say it now again. We're talking about very simple things here. We're not talking about high politics. We're not talking about quantum physics, like Alma said. We're talking about light bulbs, paved roads, pavements, and please, please, please think about the possibility of not having the cars parked on the sidewalk, because on the pavement, because someone, most of the people, at least half the population of the people, should use it daily.
And it's such a, if I can add, it's such a frustration, because recently in Sarajevo, in part of town where I live, and it's all part of town, and they rebuilt the road and really made one great sidewalk for us. And you know what our creative people, drivers are doing? Through the pješački prijelaz, cross, yeah, they go through it and then park on the sidewalk, because there is little space that they for everybody to go from the sidewalk through the road on the other side.
So they now have a very nice parking.
Yeah, they are using it as a parking, and I'm having a war with everybody who does that. But people usually laugh to me. They're laughing to me, although it's. So we also have this problem, I would say, on the level of conscience sometimes. That's why maybe we need also this information campaign, or to work with people. I don't know. Beside the policies on regulating parking, and everything.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
I was staying when one younger guy went out of the car. He literally went through me with his car, although I was on the sidewalk. And I waited and asked him, "What's in your head? Explain to me, what's in your head? How can you drive through me and then park there? There are mothers with children, fathers also with children, or some people that are in wheelchairs."
You don't have to be part of a special group in order to have the right to the public space.
It's like mine and yours.
Yes.
And how then you think that it's okay to do that? And he was just laughing to me. And then after, he together with three more guys, they were shouting to me, and I was so frustrated. But then,
But it's also a vicious circle. I mean, not the example that you shared, but here in Skopje, we see so many buildings being built on roads that cannot sustain that much traffic in a city that's still very car-centric. So people do have cars, that's the reality, and people do need their cars still to get from point A to point B. Yeah. But no one is, it feels like no one is taking a look into how these buildings are built, whether they are following the regulations for appropriate parking space for every apartment.
Appropriate green public space.
That's like science fiction. That's quantum physics. Yes. Yes, of course. So
and when it became normal to have struggles for parks, it's in Sarajevo, it's from now to there, everyone is like, protecting green areas. It's like we are in some war for the protection of public areas. And they are so important, not only for in this manner of walking, and they are so important also for expression, freedom of expression, or political organizing. You need public space
For socialization.
for socialization,
We-
or that are free for use.
That are free for use,
That's
exactly.
what engineers told us in Sarajevo. You know why I need this park here, not the building, not the parking? It's too expensive for me to go to malls or to cafes. I want to have this free open space so I can spend some time here. Maybe you can introduce some small shops that are more available to us.
It's that simple.
It's that simple when you speak with people. So this design part and participation part, it's so interconnected, and then you have opportunity to engage all of these voices and to listen, and then you design. But unfortunately, the game is
The game doesn't even take into account these layers.
Yes.
Yes, it's a one-player game. Yeah.
and we have like these nice strategic documents, very nice, polished, but without voices that will use these public spaces mostly. So.
Maybe I would also just add something, like for example in Kosovo, when it comes to the accessibility, like people with disabilities that use wheelchairs, they will need to actually use the road because the cars would block them. Or
Exactly.
even like we don't have like a lot when it comes to the bike lanes, so they will have to use even like either bike lane or like to go like the road that cars are using.
Hey, in Sarajevo with bike lanes, it's one more story. Different, let's say, organization of cities be different amongst municipalities, and then they couldn't agree. Like one municipality finishes, but the other one didn't finish on time, and this whole part of town is quite challenging also to introduce bike lanes, because also what they sometimes tend to do is to use the space for the pedestrian space and introducing it, and it's already small. Bike lines, pedestrians, everybody uses such a limited space, and this is
And that's not safe for anyone.
no, not for the
For anyone.
riders.
Yeah.
Sorry,
We went off script.
Exactly, like this kind of discussion was actually very fruitful. So now I'd go like a question for both of you. Like when it comes to women's and other vulnerable groups, daily mobility patterns are ignored. What consequences does it have? Like, it's because start like with Anna, then continue with Alma.
Okay, well, our live reality now.
Yeah.
This is the consequence when they are ignored, when they are not heard. We have the consequence of cities that do not belong the same to everyone who uses them. And I really like to point out this when we are talking, because we are talking on many topics related to women and women's rights and gender equality. I don't know whether the general public has this concept of that we are talking about half of the population of the country. At our last census, women were 51% of the citizens of the country. So we see how this excludes them from political life, as you said, from public life, from opportunities for employment, for school, and to add to that, I think it's very important, and it goes unnoticed in this discussion, on bearing the mental load of navigating the city. It's very different for women than it is for men.
So what I also previously
yeah,
said,
sure.
mobility is not only about moving from one place to another, one point to another. We already touched a bit upon this. It's about education, employment, leisure, participation in decision making. But I will not go too much into that. I will maybe just mention one example from Sarajevo, from this research Sarajevo Open Center conducted. Like 43.2% of women said that they had turned down job opportunities. So because of the workplace was too far and would require long, unreliable commutes. I think this describes very well what can happen. Then nearly a quarter missed medical appointments and therapy due to transport issues. You know, sometimes we do not tend to think about That's shocking. It's like directly influence your health. Then have skipped social activities, what we mentioned. This is also important for healthy human being and for socialization and sharing your everyday lives with your friends. And then 30.1 selected a school or university based on proximity rather than quality. So afterwards we will have maybe people that could become better experts or obtain better knowledge, but they tend to go to some other educational institutions because they couldn't find better transport solutions. So really this issue can have a vast influence on everyday life of people.
It's determining a woman's life path.
Yes.
What you just said.
And with marginalized groups such as women, LGBTIQ, it tends to complicate already hard everyday life with these kind of problems. So for them, problem is just scaling more, I would say.
Yeah. Anna, you mentioned earlier that when it comes to protection, like walking, women usually use like their keys, also they light the cigarettes, which is something they have inherited from like older generation. What do you think that based on your work, what needs to be done so women would feel safe outside?
Okay. One of the strategies I forgot to mention that's new for the new generation and will be transferred to next generation is sharing allocation. So we got that from technology. Of course, for women to be safe, I would emphasize the need for data. I'm a researcher and we are a research think tank, and I know that we are talking about the need for data a lot, and it may sound boring, but we can't know what's to be fixed if we don't ask people first what needs to be fixed. And when I say ask people, I say ask diverse groups of people. Ask women, ask LGBT people, ask elderly people, ask the young people what do they need. So we need first to collect data to see where the gaps are, not to assume the gaps, not to think through, to try to be in someone else's shoes and think like they do. We need to collect data to see where the gaps are and then work on these gaps. And unfortunately, I have the impression that this data collection process and this information about specifically about women's safety in public places is left to the civil society sector. And when something is left to the civil society sector, that means that is project funded. You shared earlier on the panel about your application. When the project cycle ends, then the fund, no one can work on that issue anymore. So when I say measuring and data collection and getting information from people, I think that this should be required. It should be standard requirement, and it should be led and coordinated by the government, of course with the support of the civil society sector. That's part of our job, and we are more than happy to provide the support when needed. But just to simplify, when something is measured, then we can see the gaps, and then that fixing the gaps can be funded. And when it's funded, it can be fixed, and then we will have cities that will support everyone's well-being. We will have safe cities, but gender-responsive data has to become a part of how we plan every intervention, always in every municipality, like a standard requirement, not when a project funding allows it.
Thank you very much for sharing this. Now, Anna, from your Cities for People campaign, what practical steps can cities take to make mobility systems safer and more equitable?
Yes, we developed, like in our work, because we work mostly with development banks, our recommendations tend to go into that direction. And I would say for Green City Action Plans, because it's EBRD's program, investment program, we usually looked at what they could do, but I would take some of these recommendations because I think they can be implemented not only through the work of development banks such as EBRD, but also government can take this into account. And what you said, like some general remark would be to use disaggregated data collection and analysis. Unfortunately, we have also in Bosnia and Herzegovina a huge problem with this. Then how can we design policies or plans?
And what are they based on?
Yes, when we don't know the true state in a real state. So this would be one. Then one would be the success of urban and built investment should not be based only on environmental benefits, because then we overlook significant potential to foster social inclusion and gender equality. And this is the problem. Sometimes these plans tend to be quite technical, and also what we said a bit about gender washing. Then it ends up on these small numbers without looking into all of these perspectives we mentioned during our discussion. Also, gender-sensitive and participatory planning is the key to providing safe, accessible, affordable, and reliable public transport. I'm also sometimes, through my work, I had opportunity also to work with some local self-government representatives, not only from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and usually what they accept from me is to tell them, okay, this is magic mechanism, participatory mechanism, and now when you use it, everything will be great. It doesn't work like that. Every local community has its local reality, and it tends to differ because of different factors, very various. Sometimes it's geography of the city, sometimes it's population, sometimes it's political education, or if the civil society is developed in that community. So different factors. That's why this participatory part needs to be designed in the level of the local realities, and I think that local communities know their realities better than any expert that can come and tell them, hey, use this mechanism. And there are very nice already available mechanisms I would say in all of our countries, probably. I know for Bosnia and Herzegovina, of course, we have a lot of different participatory mechanisms, but we need also to combine this, not only to have one event, like we have public hearing and this is that. No, we need to inform citizens. First we inform them what we are doing, why this is important, then we engage them. Then if we need also to, before public hearing, maybe we can have collect the opinions. We can have different events. It can be organized so nicely, and people love to be asked.
Yeah. Yes.
What do you need? It's such a basic question, and we, as before Bankwatch, when I was in one organization called Crvena Red, we tend to go to knock on people's doors and ask them, what do you need? What is missing? Because there was some regulatory plan was changing, and then we wanted to bring the perspective what is missed in this plan, what really people need. So this policy design, really people we need our local governments to be more engaged and more open, but also the investments need to follow this. Not only to accept, okay, they have one public hearing and that is that. And there are like European Commission gender mainstreaming guidelines. We have such nowadays available guidelines that we can also use in our work. So I will stop now here because I have like 2 pages of recommendations, and I think this can stay as a message, and yes, read our materials.
Also, like when sometimes we have like this consultation, like what people need, they usually do just to have like a tick, just to check it, we have done it. It's not like they take a lot of them like into consideration.
Yes. Yeah, we have the same problem. Like 90% of the comments, they will explain. Of course, if you want, you can find a way to explain, oh, this is not feasible. And I know for sure that some things are not. But if you see that the percentage is 90%, something is wrong. And it's easily to connect it to different modes and operations, and why they don't want to accept citizen comments.
Now, before we close, because we are like at the end, I would have like a quick question for both of us, for both of you, which would be like 30 seconds, like each of you to have one urban design change in every city in the Western Balkans that should be implemented like tomorrow. Like this is like more like imaginary question.
Only one?
Yeah, like one.
No cars on the sidewalks. For very basic, very doable.
Now, I would totally agree with you, and on personal. I will now take this question totally on personal. I will hope Bankwatch will be okay with it, but it's such a basic thing. It can be established, and it could benefit all because I don't know in English. You know these what they put on sidewalks so people that don't see or don't hear can use them. Vodilice. I don't know in English.
The stick?
Not the stick, but on the pavements you have
Okay, the tactile
yes.
plaques.
For example, during the winter, this was also ticking boxes. You know, the municipalities put this, and I never saw people use them so much. And during the winter, they would even put snow on this side where this part is. So why did you spend all of this money? Maybe you should ask the people from this group, do they need something else?
Yeah.
If you tend to spend some money on these kind of infrastructural projects and it's costly. So maybe this was step 2 and they needed step 1. So I would just add because it's connected. So.
Yeah. We also mentioned this in the transportation research that we are doing for Kosovo, like the tactile plates. Like even if it's not like winter, like they're not being cleaned. They're not being maintained.
They're not tactile anymore.
They're not being maintained at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So this is the end. So thank you both of you. It was very fruitful discussions. So I guess our audience would learn a lot of what is happening in Macedonia and also in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.